Again, everybody, and we have hockey talk for you right here. Home Ice Advantage. It is our debut show. I'm Ted Sobel. He's Jonathan Davis. And Jonathan, tell everybody who you are because I know everybody knows you. You're like a one name like Liberace, Fabian. I'm going way back in the old days. Who's Jonathan?
Well, okay. So who am I? I have been covering the game, God, since '88. I didn't think. I think
Wow.
you and I are probably we're definitely the veterans.
Oldest.
Two of the
Old.
veterans
It's
in the
called
at
old.
least
It's
in the
okay.
press box at crypto.com.
Right.
But born in Montreal, raised in Toronto. Been in LA longer than I've been in Canada.
That's amazing.
I've worked for TSN Sportsnet. I currently, do the post-game show for NHL Network Radio called Ice Cap. I do a daily betting column for VSiN, which is the Vegas Stats and Information Network, and It's a hockey betting column. So, it's that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Good. And you've been covering the NHL for how many years?
Well, I mean, '88 would have been the first time.
Okay.
Yeah, that would have been my first year covering it. All-Star game in Pittsburgh. I'll never forget. I think it would have been, or maybe that was, that would have been '89 would have been the actual All-Star game that year in Pittsburgh. And I will never forget, I think that was actually the last time we had a trade at the All-Star break. I think Bernie Nichols got traded during the All-Star break, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
But the thing that stood out to me the most, Ted, was being in one of the locker rooms and hearing the trainer say to Paul Coffey, "Could you just not be a jerk for once? Like, it's All-Star weekend."
Wow.
Yeah. So
what was that about? We got a quick story. Was it just you walking by and it happened?
Yeah, it was just an exchange, and I just happened to be in earshot of the trainer and Coffey, and it's something that has never left my memory banks.
Well, Paul could be a little moody at times, so maybe he was having one of those little moments.
Absolutely. So, but it's been a great ride. I mean, look, you and I both got to witness being in the building for the Kings winning the Stanley Cup.
Yes.
And
twice.
I mean, yeah, so to be in the building to see the cup brought out when it's the home team, something spectacular, to say the least. I was fortunate. I was in Vegas for when the Capitals beat the Golden Knights. But yeah, I mean, and for me, I think the bigger thrill was not just the Kings winning the Stanley Cup, but my son was in the building as well.
Nice.
He was there for both. So he would have been like 7 and 9. And I've told him since, you're good. Like, if they never win again, you're good. And, he's seen the Lakers win. He's seen the Dodgers win multiple times. I'm like, you're good. Like, and he just stopped sweating. So
yeah, you could tell your friends and relatives in Toronto, they're not good unless they're old, right?
Right. And
go ahead.
And on the Toronto side, I was about 50 feet from Joe Carter's game-winning home run, sitting in the press box, the auxiliary press box in Toronto. I was in Atlanta when they won, when the Jays beat the Braves. So I've been pretty fortunate. But yeah, I mean, look, hockey is definitely number one. And, being around the guys, I mean, I think for the most part, the best athletes, the nicest athletes overall that you're going to deal with. I mean, it's been a great ride. I feel fortunate. I think we're very lucky that we, to be able to go to games and to be able to, kind of be the voice of the fan, because
I've always called it the conduit.
Yeah. I think that, it's interesting being involved in some Zoom calls, even in the betting community with other hockey people, and hearing some of the things that come out of their mouth. And, you're hearing people talking about, oh, they're not going to be motivated tonight or this and that. And
they're hockey players.
I'm like, first off, where are you getting your information?
They're not golfers. They're hockey players.
Well, but it's just to make statements about, the mindset of a team for the most part, I don't know. So I just think we're fortunate. We don't know we're limited. Look, we know a fair bit. We know more
Hey,
than.
by the way, speak for yourself on that. We don't know
Okay.
everything. Go ahead.
Well, we know more than Joe Fan, but we don't really know that much because
yes,
like we don't know what's really going on. A guy's hurt or not. We don't know that sort of stuff.
exactly. And never will anymore. We used to a little bit in the old days, but now it's a lower body injury, which could be below your feet. I mean, we have no idea how low that is.
Well, but I think during one of the King's Cup runs, I mean, Dustin Brown, he would, before he would come into the locker room to meet us bums, they were taking off, I think it was Brown or maybe it was Williams, they were taking the harness, like a shoulder harness that he was wearing. Right. We never knew about that sort of stuff.
Right.
Nor should we.
Exactly.
We shouldn't. And yeah. So.
Well, one of the things that I think we pride ourselves on here in LA is the fact, and I'm a Los Angeles native, so I go back decades and decades and too many. We're looking at a town where Jack Ken Cook, the first owner of the Kings, once said, "This is where all the Canadians go who hate hockey," and they've moved here. So it took decades to overcome that. And as you can see in this picture, it's the first team born in LA. And it really is, Dodgers moved here, Lakers moved here, blah, blah, blah. So it took forever for them to finally get their first Stanley Cup. And a little bit of background on myself. I'm also doing some hockey over the years. Besides all the other sports that I cover here with your buddy EJ on NHL Network. I wrote a book, Touching Greatness. It's over my head. You can see it there, and we could talk about that. There's a chapter on hockey itself that's not a hockey book at all. But I go way back with this team. Yes, we got a chance to see a couple of Stanley Cups, and we had a close call in '93. This is me 100,000 years ago when I was practicing play-by-play, and I ended up the PA announcer for the Long Beach Sharks of the Pacific Hockey League. I'm sure you remember that well when you were 3 or whatever you were in 1970s. Whatever, in 77.
But no, I don't remember the Long Beach Sharks.
No, you don't. No, and they were also the Los Angeles Sharks in the WHA. How do you remember them?
I went to WHA games. That was a lot of fun in Toronto.
Nice. Like, what was the name of the team there?
The Toros.
Toros. Okay, great.
It was a blast. Like I'm trying to remember, for whatever reason, Mark Napier, the former Montreal Canadian, and he played for Edmonton as well. So the one guy that stood out as a prolific goal scorer in the WHA. But that was a lot of fun. You could go for, basically like $3 or $4 to a game.
At Maple Leaf Gardens too, right?
At Maple Leaf Gardens, yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Oh,
so how weird was that? You see all these banners up in the air and it had nothing to do with the team that was playing that night.
Well, for a guy who was born in Montreal, you hated the Maple Leafs. So I didn't really care about the banners.
Okay, interesting.
But it's come full circle for me. My son goes to school at what's now called Toronto Metropolitan University. Used to be Ryerson University. And where do they play? In what's the old Maple Leaf Gardens, which has been converted. Half of the building is a grocery store.
Okay.
And the other half is for the university, where they've got a basketball and full gym on one floor, but the third floor is like a 5,000 seat arena. It's still the original roof for Maple Leaf Gardens. Nice. They've got some of the old seats hanging around in the concourse areas. It's really cool to go and look in this building because one of the things that stands out for me at Maple Leaf Gardens. Well, I can say this because this is, the most disgusting part about going to a Leaf game is that if you didn't sit like in what was called the golds, which were the expensive seats, anything above gold, which was green, red, green, gray, and blues were on the ends. The bathrooms were troughs for the urinals. It was the most disgusting thing ever. But I'll never forget when the Kings were there. I was there in '93 when LA
the greatest playoff series in my mind ever.
Well, one of them. Yeah.
Well, that's in my mind. I mean, it's all subjective.
Right. No, it was phenomenal. Don't get me wrong.
And Game 7, incredible.
They had to build an auxiliary press box for Bob Miller and Jim Fox. and it was built above the existing press box, and
Nice.
getting to it was not
stairway,
easy.
a little
Pardon?
stairwell or kind of
I think
thing.
it was like a catwalk that they had to build.
Yeah, exactly.
And Jim is terrified of heights, and they had to. You ask him. They actually had to strap him down like with a belt during the game.
Wow.
Yeah,
you know, by the way, before you continue, we started rambling so fast, I never played the Open. So speaking of Jim Fox.
This is Jim Fox from the LA Kings, and you're watching Home Ice Advantage, all hockey talk with Ted Sobel and Jonathan Davis.
There you go. How's that?
Oh, my God. I'm surprised. When you told him it was me, he still did it?
Yeah, well, I tried to edit it out. I didn't have enough time. Anyway, I have my own Toronto story.
Go ahead.
And by the way, and it's not a Maple Leaf Gardens because I've never been to Maple Leaf Gardens.
Yeah.
All those years, I never got a chance to go there. And we do have Kings players and Coach Jim Hiller coming up in just a little bit here. I got sound from them. And Nick Nixon, the great Kings play-by-play announcer, 44 years, and he'll be wrapping it up at the end of this season. We'll get a little sound from Nick as well at the end of the show. But my Toronto Maple Leaf story is 1967. Now, what do you remember about that year, even though you were just nothing?
I was 2.
Right. But you remember one thing about the Leafs, even though you were in Montreal. Exactly. Okay. Yes. You could call it the Ted Sobel jinx. Okay. Because they won, and then it was expansion, and the Kings hired their defenseman Red Kelly to be their first head coach.
Yeah.
And their first overall pick in the expansion draft was goaltender Terry Sawchuk. Right.
Oh. Okay.
Right. So they're both original LA Kings. And the first season of the Kings, game 7 of the playoffs, first round series, and of course, obviously first ever playoff series for the Kings in LA. It was a huge game for Sawchuk to show, okay, here's what we got you for, baby. You know, you got to prove yourself. Let's get this W, move on to the second round and see whatever happens. That year it was the St. Louis Blues who ended up going all the way to the finals, and they lost to the Canadiens. So game 7 was the first NHL game I've ever been to. And I had a buddy of mine in junior high school, Dave DeMont, a Canadian guy who was trying to convince me, you got to go to a game. You got to go to a game. And he, all year, I think I was in like 8th grade, maybe. I think it was 8th grade. So finally he says, for games before game 7, the day before, he goes, my parents have tickets for game 7. We got them from the King Stick Boy.
Oh.
And you're going. We got 4 seats. You're going. And my parents insist on it. I said, okay. So we went to the game. And by the time the second intermission, it was, I believe, the final score was 9-4. Minnesota North Stars beat the Kings, right? It was a total blowout. And Terry Sawchuk was not a happy guy, obviously.
Yeah.
And he could be a moody guy too, by the way. Separate from that, my buddy says, we're going to go down. I'm going to introduce you to the Stick Boy. That was a different world then. We were on the Kings bench in the second intermission. Okay. Try to do that now. You'll be in prison for 30 years.
Oh God. Yeah. No, go ahead. I'll let you finish your story, but I've got something along that line.
Great. So we're talking, he's talking to the Stick Boy, introduces me. I'm standing leaning up against the sticks. And it's the first time I've ever been at close to a hockey stick. Right.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up with hockey. So I'm looking at it like, this is great. And I look it up at the clock and it's like about 6 minutes left in the intermission. And I said, hey, we got to get the hell out of here. This is like, we don't need to be near the bench when they come out, and the Kings are getting blasted too. Right. So separate from that, we don't belong down there. And the Stick Boy says, no, don't worry about it. You're good. You're with me. And we stayed there. Then a couple minutes later, here come the Kings out of the locker room, skating around. And I look, I said, we have got to leave. I do not want to be standing here. And they said, no, you're good. Just a couple more minutes. You're good. Here comes Terry Sawchuk skating over to the bench. I don't remember what it was. It was too long ago. Probably getting some water or, whatever, right? He's about 5 feet away from me, looks at me like, what the hell are you doing here? And who the hell are you? right? And I think there were a couple of F-bombs in there thrown, and I'm looking like, this is not good. And then he skates over to the goal. Kings lose 9-4. I'm embarrassed as hell, but I have the greatest story to tell forever. I got invited to the Hockey Hall of Fame once in Toronto, and the guy who showed me around, I told him that story. He goes, that's the greatest effing story I've ever heard in my life. You didn't even know who he was. He's the greatest goalie who ever lived to that point, obviously. So anyway, that's the jinx. They haven't won since.
It's all your fault.
Everybody blames everything on me anyway. Go ahead.
So my two stories. One, talk about just being that close.
Yes.
A good friend of mine is Ian Pulver's his name. Ian is an agent now. He used to work for the Players Association, an agent and hockey agent. And
right.
Ian and his family had seats right behind the visitors' bench.
Okay.
And you could walk between, his seats and the bench. There was a walkway. Kind of, look, they had it in Montreal, but yeah, he was right there. And I mean, you could just touch the players' backs. It felt like if you wanted to. And
right.
Back then, like in the days of the Flyers, and there were some great brawls. But
sure.
Yeah, being that close, how just to your point, how times have changed.
I
do have one story about a brush with a player, and I'm trying to think. It's when I was working at Prime Ticket.
Yeah.
So had to be somewhere between 90 and 93. And I was working on a story about what it was like to play with and against Wayne Gretzky.
Right. So
I'm at an Oilers practice, and I asked to talk to Dave Brown. Now, for those who don't know, Dave Brown was a beast. He was a big time fighter, big man. He could beat the snot out of guys. So I said to him, I go, Dave, I said, look, I told him what I'm doing. And I just said, hey, look, just curious to get your thoughts on what it was like to play both with and against Wayne, because he had come from Philadelphia. And he said, I never played with Gretzky. You're talking about, and walked away.
Wow.
And I was absolutely mortified. And it had to be, I'm still standing outside the locker room. Maybe I was still trying to wait for other players. But here's the difference between hockey players and other athletes. Shortly after, Brown came back out of the locker room, still in his gear, came up to me, and he said, look, I'm really sorry for the way I reacted. He goes, I realize you made a mistake. And you just got the dates confused because Wayne and I came just after he left.
Okay.
So it was an honest mistake.
That's great.
And I'm just like, holy crap. To me, that just tells you the difference. Like, I can't think of too many baseball players that would, afford you the same, type of response, or an NBA guy. Like,
unlikely.
I've never forgotten what he did. Especially someone at that time, was so early in my career. I just felt mortified to make the mistake.
Sure. Well, anyway, and I go way back with Wayne. Here's a picture with the 802 puck the night
Who's the guy next to him?
It used to be me.
Oh, okay.
And there's a whole story behind why this picture was taken, because we do not take pictures ever in the locker room, except for this one, which Wayne told the Kings photographer, who was the last guy left in the room that night, hey, Sobel's the only guy I didn't get a picture with. Let's do it. And he says, where's my puck? And they brought the puck. They actually unwrapped the puck and took that picture. Oh, it's and the whole story's in my book, Touching Greatness, which, by the way, Wayne was very kind enough to endorse. Yeah. Anyway, why don't we get into a little bit of what's going on with the Kings right now? Yeah. Okay, we're talking about the Great 8 chase soon with Ovechkin, but there's also the Great 8 chase there's 8 games left for the Kings in the regular season. Okay, very good. Yes, thank you. And they continue to do great. Home Ice Advantage is the name of this show, sort of named after that. what the
Yeah.
Kings are doing at home right now. And I want to get your impressions before we hear from the coach, Jim Hiller, your thoughts on why this team, and the whys are huge, because I'm one of these guys for decades. I've always said home ice is the most meaningless of all the major sports when it comes to being at home. It's not that it's meaningless at all, but it doesn't mean as much in hockey as it does in other sports. And as my mentors in the past have said, if you win the battle on the ice, it doesn't matter what ice it is. It could be in a parking lot. You win the battles. So go ahead.
Well, look, I think that there's a lot of ways to attack this. I think one, to your point, that look, the way buildings are designed today, they're pretty much all the same. It's not like we don't have like the old Boston Garden, the Chicago Stadium,
where the puck bounced off the boards too funny, and then the shorter rink.
Right, the shorter rink. Detroit was another one. The boards were always very unique. Like the buildings are pretty standard these days.
Right.
I think the big difference, one of the big differences. I think for LA, the only advantage, I think they've been able to take advantage of matchups. Like this is where the only thing that home ice gives you is the last change.
Right.
And I think, that has worked well for them. I mean, I wasn't at the game against Winnipeg, but the game against Toronto, they were very focused on matching up Kopitar against the Matthews line, Byfield against Tavares. They were that was a big thing for them. They shut down the Leafs. So I think that they take advantage of those matchups because look, Ted, I mean, at the end of the day, overall, the teams that are ahead of them, at least, Edmonton, I think you could argue maybe they're not as skilled as Edmonton just because of Connor and Leon.
Right.
They're definitely not more skilled than Vegas. They're not more skilled than Colorado or Dallas. So they, I think for them, that's where home ice becomes an advantage for them because they can try to take advantage of the matchups. Now, look, and scheduling plays into it.
Yeah.
But to your point, the other thing to your point, though, is that come playoff time, like everyone's on the same schedule. So you're not getting that team at home who's on a back-to-back and playing 3 games in 4 nights or 4 games in 6 nights. So I think, playoffs, some of that home ice advantage goes away.
Yeah. But yet the entire city is talking about, we've got to have home ice against the Oilers this time. Yeah. Obviously, it would be nice. It would help a little. But if we look at the numbers, especially over the last several years, some of these seasons, they've been under 500 home teams in the playoffs. It's crazy.
100%. Look, I went back, looking at like Colorado one year. They were unbelievable. They were average at home and unbelievable on the road.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to explain it. Like, I really felt bad, I'm not going to mention names here, but, a Kings broadcaster was asked a question about why they're so successful at home. And, he gave his answers why they were successful at home, but didn't say why that didn't translate on the road. Like, outside here, because matchups weren't really mentioned. It was, they were talking about things like coaching and depth of the roster. Well, you have the same coach on the road. It's not like you're bringing someone in new. You've got the same depth on the roster. So
I truly believe, Jonathan, that you cannot explain it in an exact way. I mean, there's just so many variables. I think just in general, there's a comfort level at home, obviously. Of course, you get adrenaline rush from the fans. All of that is great. You get the last line change, blah, blah, blah. But when you're on the road, it's totally different. And I think it becomes a mindset after a while. That's and that's about as simple as I can make it, I think.
I think that's fair. And look, to a lesser degree, and I don't remember if I shared this with you or if it was somebody else, but I went away. I was back home in Toronto visiting family for a week.
Right.
And I was trying to work while I was away. And I will tell you, Ted, like my whole routine was so different 3-hour time difference really it messed me up, and I didn't find myself as working as effectively as I do when I'm at home.
And you weren't wearing skates, so that
I was not wearing skates. My brother would not allow me to wear them in the house, and the weather was good, so we didn't need them. But I can understand it. I mean, you're out of your element, but to have this kind of disparity to me, like we were talking. Look, Vegas's first year, everybody talked about the Vegas flu, and look, there were players that were out partying that first year at the casinos and nightclubs, and maybe it paved the way. But look, there are other teams that are really good at home. Winnipeg, I think really good at home. Maybe that's because no one wants to go out in Winnipeg and they're all staying in and getting their sleep. So I don't know,
one of the coldest nights I ever had in my life was in Winnipeg.
That was in January, or in June.
No, it wasn't in June. That is one
cold damn effort. I think I've shared with you the story. I was at my friend's wedding in August, and we had hailstones the size of golf balls hitting our hotel window. So I'll believe anything. But I can't explain it either. But yes, look, there's obviously a comfort level playing at home, and look, this would be the first time if LA can. They got 2 big games against Edmonton, but this would be the first time in 4 years, if they do finish in second, that they would have home ice in the series.
Yep.
So, hey, whatever they can do to try.
Well, you'd rather be home anyway. I mean, now whether it matters is, call me after the game. I mean, basically, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm sure I'm sure they look, it would be better, look, but conversely, we talk about in the playoffs, Ted, hey, no big deal to start the road. You take one on the road and then you grab home ice advantage. So, exactly. It works both ways.
Yeah, totally.
Ultimately, if this series gets to a game 6 and even a game 7, does the sphincter start to tighten for LA when they start to think about, oh crap, here we go again. We can't, piss this one away.
Yeah. Well, I think the good news for the Kings in that department is they have enough new guys where there is no here we go again. It's going to be new to them. They're not going to feel what happened in the past. It might be a little bit in the room, but I don't believe there's too many character guys for that to affect them in my mind.
Okay. Fair. Yeah. I mean, look, the new guys are Fogel. I mean, that's a good guy to have because he's obviously been through the war on the other side. You've got a guy like Jeannot who's a beast. I mean, just the physical presence, and see when he comes back. But there's still a lot of the same guys.
Well, but I mean, some of the key guys, and certainly, and the young guys who are growing up into this, like Byfield, for example, who is now, he's not the same player he was even last year. I mean, he has got so much confidence. Every time he hits the ice, it's like, give me the puck. I'm taking over here. He wasn't like that before.
I agree with you. I think that there is 100%. He wants the puck. Yep. He wants to make a play. And I think that, for me, there's two schools of thought. One, there's still immature aspects to his game. I think sometimes because he feels, and I understand, he uses his body, he uses his size so much better. Ted, I think I shared with you, the two things that turned things around for Quinton Byfield.
Yeah, his skating, right?
Well, one was he went to Barb Underhill, former figure skater, worked out with her. I don't know if it's in Toronto or in LA. It doesn't really matter. But the point is, he spent an off season working on his skating with her, and you can see it. The other thing is that after it was midway through his second or third season, the Kings finally got him to, as I've always joked about, they got him to stop using his baby stick, the baby hockey stick that he was using. He was hunched over. And
tell everybody it was a shorter stick, literally.
He had a short stick. It was the same stick that he was using from his junior days, was my understanding.
Wow.
And I know the Kings definitely made him go to a longer stick I know that for a fact. So I don't,
Okay.
and that has kept him upright because my first memory of watching Byfield play was watching him the one Ontario Reign game that I went to, and I'm seeing this guy like he's falling down, he's getting knocked over pretty easily.
Or knocked off the puck when he normally wouldn't be, right?
Well, but it was more just being knocked down. Like,
wow, okay.
And I'm just like, what's going like because he was just too low and he wasn't taking advantage of his size. So
right.
Look, I think that there's a lot of reason to be excited for Byfield. I wish the Kings would make him. I think, to me, he should be on the number one power play unit. No ifs, ands, or buts. It's time that the captain is on the number two unit. That may be an unpopular opinion, but that to me, for this team to be a better team, Quentin Byfield should be on that number one unit.
And we're going to be talking a lot about special teams over the next few weeks. We're going to do this a weekly show. I mean, that's what wins you playoff rounds or doesn't. I mean, if you don't have great special teams, you got no chance.
Yeah, I just think like when Kopitar's out there, he's not shooting the puck, so you don't have to worry about defending the shot.
Right.
Like what I've been impressed with Byfield is his ability to score from distance this year.
Yeah.
That wouldn't you not agree? Like that's
absolutely.
For NHL players, that is one of the hardest things to do. We all talk about you want to be, get traffic. Most goals are scored from 5 feet and in.
Yeah.
But Byfield's ability to surprise goalies this year, scoring from distance, to me, it gets enough. It gets attention out here.
Sure.
But I don't think people who don't see the Kings on a regular basis, and when they do in the playoffs, when they do get to see him maybe a little more in the playoffs, look out for that because I'm impressed by that.
I actually was going to bring that up. Not exactly that, but the fact that Byfield, if he plays well in the playoffs and produces, I'm sure he's going to play, he's going to play his style. That's who he is now. But if he produces numbers, he literally could become a star in these playoffs. Where nationally, where people are going to say, wow, I didn't know he was that good.
Yeah, here's the thing. I agree with you, but here's the thing, though. At the end of the day, like Byfield's numbers, statistically, right now, I think he's on pace for maybe one more goal than he finished with last year.
Exactly. It's not great.
It's not great. Like he had that great run of goals in 6 straight games and,
right.
Like 7 of 8, but outside of that, really his number, he had 11 goals in his first 59, and then it was 17 and 65.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, let's get more into him next week.
Okay.
We'll talk more about Byfield and his limitations and and his expectations.
Sure.
Because there's a lot there. And this guy is a huge key to the Kings' success in the playoffs. And I mean, more than ever. I think he's just a giant key.
Totally agree.
Okay, let's hear from Jim Hiller, who me and all the other media bums got a chance to talk to after the win last night against against Winnipeg, which was really a nice win.
Is that your best defensive effort of the season?
That's hard to say. One of them, for sure. I wouldn't say it's the best. I thought we were a little sloppy at times, to be honest with you. But it was a good game. Yeah, we played good. It's a really good team. They don't give you much, so it was a good effort.
Felt like a playoff-style game in that every chance felt extremely important. You guys were able to capitalize on a couple of them. Did you see it that way as well from Iceland, or was it more maybe from both?
No, I thought that was it. I thought we played better against Toronto defensively than we did tonight. Yeah, penalty kill, of course, tonight was a big story. I thought that was, rock solid, and that was easy to see. But yeah, we capitalized, and when we capitalize, we're usually hard to come back on.
Talking about not giving them a lot. Each of the time you play the Jets, you have given up less than 20 shots each time. So, playing against good teams, what does that mean to you moving into the playoffs?
Yeah, we played Winnipeg. If there's one team that we played extremely well this year, it would be Winnipeg. And it goes back to the game we lost in San Jose. We had them up next. They're first place team in the league like tonight. So I think it really got us focused in. And then the game in Winnipeg was a strong game for us, same way. And then tonight too. So yeah, I'm sure they're frustrated with us. We play similar style, I think. They don't give up much. I think they've given up less goals than us. So both teams, it's whoever can find the back of the net, and we had a couple nice ones.
Jim, how much of a different element in the ice, and how much of a jolt has he given your life?
This was Kuzmenko.
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys have watched it too, just like us. Really, it's really hard to believe, to be honest with you. I don't think, in our wildest dreams could have expected him to come in and really get his, he had the big year in Vancouver, but he's really seems to have got his game back. And I remember him in Vancouver, didn't see him that much, and he was really dangerous on the power play. But right now, he's just all over the ice. And I mentioned it before, you see him on the back check too, right? He's quite a player right now.
Is there an element that he gives that maybe you didn't quite have, maybe particularly in the low zone?
Yeah. Well, he's very evasive. So he's able to create separation and hang on to the puck. It's really hard to do. Somebody's coming at you. These guys are big and strong and fast, and he's able to quick twitch, and you see him. He'll fake, and then he spins, and now he's got 3 feet, and he's able to make the next play because of it. Where most players in the league, that guy's coming at it, you're just pushing along the boards, hoping your next buddy gets it. He pushes it, so he's able to create that separation that as well as some of the top guys in the league, frankly, in the O-zone like that. So that's really, really added a lot to our team. And I think to Kopitar and Kempe, they're able to find some ice, get available, and they know they don't have to quickly just support him. He's going to be able to, on his own, create some separation and be able to make the next play.
Jim, going back to the beginning of the year, where would you say your goals were to go into this stretch run at that time and where you are now? And are you, from especially a defensive standpoint overall, right, and in this building, how that might translate into the play?
Well, that's a big question. There's a lot there. I wanted to maintain our defensive conscience. I wanted to, because in the end you have to check to win. Yeah, you have to check to win. So I wanted to make sure we maintained that focus. We played pretty well at home towards the end of last year. I wanted to continue that. I thought we played pretty well in front of our fans. I wanted to continue that, and I wanted to make sure that as we were reaching the playoffs that we felt good about our game. And we're not there yet. If the playoffs started tomorrow or in 2 days, I would say, yeah, we feel good about our game. We got to keep going. We got a little ways to go yet, but I like how we're playing.
That's Jim Hiller, the head coach of the Kings. That last question was mine.
Yes.
And I really liked his answer because I wanted to get his feeling like, okay, so how does this live up to your expectations from, okay, we're now in the final stretch run here, right? And you're playing well at home, but you wanted to always say, I don't want anybody to want to come to LA and think that they could just beat the Kings easily. And it's not that way for any other team. That's for damn sure, right?
Well, I mean, look, there was a period of time, Ted, where this was like the Bermuda Triangle coming to California.
Yes.
Because when the Sharks were really good. I mean,
yeah.
There are a lot of things to take away from what he said. The Kuzmenko thing for me, I agree with him. I mean, I think that he has more than exceeded expectations. The knock on Kuzmenko was the defensive part of his game.
Yeah.
And he hasn't been a liability out there.
Not at all.
Not at all. And he's producing, obviously. So that's because think about it. The Philadelphia Flyers, are paying half of his salary not to play for them. Like, that's how desperate they, and they had just made a big deal to get him. He was one of the key members in a 4-player deal with Calgary. And then a month later, they're like, okay, yeah, we're good. We're done with you.
Well, how much did he need a kick in the ass, though? Literally. I mean, this trade maybe basically told him, hey, buddy, you don't live up to even close to what your talents are. You're not going to be around anywhere very long.
Yeah. I mean, this is his 3rd team this season, his 4th team in 2 years. So
yeah, I thought it was 3 years, but that whatever it is,
or 3 years, whatever it is, but still his 4th team in a
exactly,
not a good thing. So yeah, look, he has responded. He is playing with. I think it's interesting when I just thought about this now. I mean, you think about from a skill standpoint, offensive skill standpoint.
Yep,
this is probably the best 3rd player to play with Kopitar and Kempe or Kopitar, and think about it. It was Kopitar, Brown, Iafallo. It was Kopitar, Kempe, insert player.
Right.
It was Byfield. I'm sorry, it was Byfield for a year and a half.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And Byfield, the dynamic of the line has changed because when Byfield was there, his job was really just to do all the heavy lifting. Go get the freaking puck and get it for the other two guys. It's changed. So look, this is what they need come game 83. They need Kuzmenko, they need Kempe, and they need Fiala. And I don't know what your thoughts are. I think Kuzmenko gives more than what is better than Fiala from the standpoint that I think Kuzmenko can create his own offense. I think Fiala needs someone to get the puck to him so he can be the trigger man. I think Kuzmenko, with his skill, doesn't need someone. He can do it. He can be more effective on his own.
I agree with you to a point. I think Fiala's talent and skill level are still high enough to create whatever he needs. The question is, he tends to be, in my mind, scatterbrained out there at times, where he's flying around, and it's like, well, wait a minute, you got to be under a little more control here.
Well, that's
But if he does that, I mean, he has the talent to do it. Whether he does, I think his focus, he loses it at times. But we're gonna hear from him in a couple of minutes. Okay, Fiala's coming up, but let's hear from Kuzmenko first. Just a couple of quick comments. His broken English, he's a lot of fun to talk to, and he actually, I think he gets a kick out of us idiots in the media.
You've been here long enough. Feeling of why you guys are so good at home.
Good support, good support fans, good support probably everyone. For family is a good time, and this good city, and good team, good feeling before every game. I don't know, probably is everyone like it. Home games, I like it.
Are you feeling it in the room though?
Yes, feeling in the room is home, is city, is good energy for everyone. Everyone is a support, is good.
Miller was really complimentary of your back checking, after last game on your goal tonight to
Yeah.
make the play in the neutral zone.
This was
How
last night.
important is it to kind of commit in those areas of the game on top of the goals and the assists?
It's good. It's a very important moment for me is the defense. How I play defense. I like it. Because this is my first season in NHL, and good learn to me because I play with 5 coaches, and the very good coaches in NHL is every coach, and good help to me, good support to me about a lot of moments. Now I understanding how I can play better in defense zone, how I can play better in neutral zone, because it's so important moment. These teams and go to playoff, go to cup, and very important to me how I can play in the defense zone.
There you go. So that's Kuz, and that's exactly. I cut that out just specifically. It's funny you led into that perfectly with your previous comments, but he's showing like, okay, I'm learning that I have to play both ends of the rink, or I don't belong here.
Well, yeah, and I'll tell you, I it doesn't matter who asked the question, and I don't want you to say if you know, but when I hear a reporter ask someone, how important is it that you back check? Really? Like,
that's the stuff that Coach Sutter used to look at us and say, I don't even want to do this anymore. That's okay.
How important is it? Really? Like, yeah.
I know we won't go there, but anyway.
Yeah. No, but I understand, like, the question really, just talk about, your commitment to defense.
Exactly. And that's the word. It's commitment.
Right.
And he didn't have that before with any of the team.
Right. And so, yeah, look, it's refreshing. I mean, the Kings have more weapons now than they've had in years past.
Right.
And that, regardless of home ice, that to me is the one difference. That is one major difference in going up against Edmonton this year.
Yep, no doubt about it. And by the way, here we were last night getting a laugh. He was laughing half the time. He is such an
celebration, Ted, after the goal.
Exactly. By the way, what do you think of like his attitude has been so positive that can't hurt the room either, right?
No, it can't. I mean, look, it's all about fitting in.
Exactly.
see some emotion. Look, I mean, we're starting, over the last year, like Kempe even now smiles after scoring a goal. Like he didn't do that for the first,
that's a
how
great
many years
point.
of playing here. So look, I think it's great. Like for me, my guy is Mark Stone. I don't think anyone he to me is one of the happiest, if not the happiest hockey player.
He's not that way off the ice, but he is on the
Well, but like when he scores or when one of his teammates.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, he's passionate.
Ovechkin's the same way,
Right.
extremely passionate.
Exactly.
I never understood with Kempe. Yeah, it's kind of like I expected to do it, so no big deal.
Right. But by the way, the way Kempe came on the last few years and is where he is now, that's sort of the road that I see Byfield potentially earning for himself.
Well, I think there's a bit of a difference. I'll tell you the one difference.
Not that they're the same player, but but it took a while to develop, is what I mean.
But I think that my understanding from Kempe is that I don't think he fully. I don't think he was really sure where he stood in this roster and what his
role was,
what his ability really was with this team, because I can tell you, I had one Kings person tell me that Kempe is more concerned about his Instagram posts and just making good salary than being a really good hockey player. But I think
he's matured. He's matured into his job.
Yeah, because I think he really understood. Like, hey, I've got the ability here. And
no doubt.
I mean, look, for years it was like, is he a winger? Is he a center? Is he a winger? I want to be a center, and he's flourished on the wing, and good for him.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of flourishing, second stint with the Kings, the goaltending's been much better than I ever would have expected out of Darcy Kuemper, who can be streaky at times, but he streaked himself to put his name on a Stanley Cup. And now he wants to do it again. And you got to give him a lot of credit there. We talked to him after the game last night. A couple of comments from Darcy Kuemper.
Defensive style for the entire team. Guys that didn't give up 20 shots on goal in any game against Winnipeg this year. What does that say about you guys from an overall standpoint?
Yeah, I think when we're committed to locking down, blocking shots, it's hard to generate chances, but even hard to generate shots on net. So we do such a good job with that, with all four lines, that we can kind of wear teams down, make them frustrated as the game goes along.
Season sweep against Winnipeg. I mean, obviously, you look at all the superlatives: longest winning streak, best record, lowest goals against, etc. What's giving you so much success against this team?
I think all year when we've been playing against the top teams, we've really gotten up for those games. We like to challenge ourselves, and those are great measuring sticks playing against a team like them. And I think the top teams bring out the best in us, make us play our best hockey, and I think that's why we've had so much success.
Darcy, you mentioned this being like a Kings win. It seems like specifically at home, once you guys get that 2-goal lead, it just gets shut down. You guys aren't going to be beat. What's the confidence level in this room once you get that kind of lead?
Yeah, I mean, it's not really anything we talk about. It's just something you kind of feel. When we're in tight games, whether it's tied, down one, up one, late in the games, there's just a belief that we're going to come out on top. And when everyone's thinking like that, usually good things happen.
There you go. So I wanted to get a feel for what Darcy Kuemper's attitude is and his thoughts about the team itself. Just the fact that they have a confidence against the better teams, and a lot of teams can't say that at this time of the year.
No, but that's the thing that's still so befuddling with this Kings team. I mean, this is the same LA team that's lost twice to San Jose, lost twice to Chicago.
Yeah,
but comes in, is one of three teams in the NHL, to beat Winnipeg. Like,
I know, but the good news is they don't play any bad teams in the playoffs in that respect.
Right. Look, they get themselves up for the games that matter, and there's something to be said. There's something to be said for that, for sure. Look, they limited the shots. I mean, that's LA style, Ted. I mean,
of course.
I've joked with you. I mean, they work so hard 5-on-5 that the power play, for the longest time has been like a coffee break for them.
They're exhausted by the time.
Exhausted. I mean, seriously. So We saw it against Toronto too. I mean, they didn't give up a 5-on-5 goal against Toronto. They gave up the shorty, a power play, and an empty net goal. They defended really well. Like they're kind of like, let's put it in tennis terms. Like they're just gonna, what's the term? I'm thinking of the term now. They're trying to make the other team make an unforced error. Okay. They're willing to keep volleying with you, and we're just going to pounce when you guys just kind of.
I think that is a great example, truthfully.
Yeah, so I think that's what they're like. That's what they do. Like it's not. Right. They're not interested in scoring. They're obviously their record now in scoring 3 or more is where they haven't lost in regulation yet. The Maple Leaf game was the first time that they had lost the game in regulation when they had led after 2. I think they're 28-1-2.
I think that's correct.
So look, there are a lot of positive signs with this team. Ultimately, let's see what happens come game 83.
Well, of course. Let's get one more player in here. Kevin Fiala. This is from a few games back after they beat the Rangers, but a couple of interesting comments that I saved for this.
Have the success with you guys on home ice. I know we talk about it after every home win, which seems like a lot now, but the consistency and even winning tight games like tonight, what's it been taking to get it done?
It's been awesome. It's been fun to play in front of the fans. We feel home here. We feel great here. Obviously, we're strong here. The feeling kind of, there's we kind of feel it. We're gonna win. No matter if we're up or down. We believe that what we do eventually it's we just do the same thing over and over again, and eventually hopefully the puck goes in, and it's been lately, so we just gonna try to keep it going.
What kind of jump does Andrei Kuzmenko give to the power play? Trevor Moore was asked about it as well. The creativity that he brings. What have you kind of noticed?
Well, a lot. I mean, he's very skilled. Make plays. He can shoot the puck. Even 5-on-5. He's been awesome. Brought a lot to us, to our team. We appreciate him for sure. He's talking. He sees the ice. So it's been awesome. I mean, the goal from me today was empty net. So it was awesome play by him.
Get 7 shots on goals. A nice night, any night, though, right? To get opportunities.
Yes, if you get opportunities, it's always fun. To be honest, they play hard though. Some chances were a little far away, but a chance is a chance. So, yeah.
Have you guys kind of got stuck out with a few icings there, but you guys were out late in the game, protecting the lead? I know Jim mentioned you want to play in those scenarios. They were maybe hesitant. I mean, what does it say about the growth of your game, and how much do you enjoy those scenarios?
Well, I enjoyed them a lot. I mean, I'm 28 years old, so I'm not young anymore. No, I want to, of course, be out there. It was nice to be out there today to show I can do it. Obviously, some icings here and there, but we stuck with it. The team helped us out, structure here and there, and I think we finished it off well.
We talked a few weeks ago.
By the way, structure, that's a very good word when it comes to Kevin Fiala. Because he needs to play more structured, no doubt about it. And I brought up the 7 shots on goal he had that night, even though they all weren't, great shots. But that's not important, because how many times have we mentioned to Coach Hiller, if this guy doesn't shoot, you might as well leave him at home.
Well, I think what I've noticed, because I've been a guy that is a very harsh critic of Fiala, but I've noticed the less risk to his game. I think that's I don't know. Would you agree? Like
less risk in, like, explain example.
Well, he was always risk reward. Like for every one play he'd make 2 bad plays.
Right.
They give up a shorthanded goal because of a bad play that Fiala was making made on the power play. I just thought he would take too many chances. I don't see that in his game right now. And look, he's made his money, but I can tell you. Without, because I want to ask this person first before I can mention his name. But I know one of his coaches said to him, it's your choice. You can either be $1 million player or a $5 million player. And this was obviously before he signed his deal for 7 whatever. But that's what, this is something that's plagued him throughout his days in Nashville and Minnesota. and even throughout much of his time here in Los Angeles. But I think that I'm seeing a difference in his game, and good for him, because I pull up the numbers, but for the longest time, if I remember correctly, like Kevin Fiala was the only minus forward, when it comes to plus minus. And I know it's not the be all and end all stat, Ted,
right?
But when everybody is a plus player and you're a minus, like there's.
Yes, and we'll talk more about plus minus as we go along with this show, because I have strong. But you're right. I mean, when there one or two stand out, you got to look at that closer.
Ted, he's still the only minus player, other than Trevor Lewis. Okay, I'm not worried about that, and Andre Lee. But I mean, really, of the top 9 or regular top 12 forwards, and he's the only minus player on the team.
Wow. And believe me, I'm sure the coaches and management know that very well.
Yeah, but that's why, I haven't seen how that numbers, how it's changed of late. Right. There are less times where I'm going, oh, there's another bad play by Fiala. And so.
Yeah, no, I think his focus is better, but I think the structure of the team with their success is helping him, because I think he's fitting into say, this is what I need to do. And now that's a matter of doing it.
Well, and I think the other thing that's also helped with this team, like even before, like even when Kuzmenko got here, I wasn't sure, didn't know like
how he's going to fit, right?
Well, I knew where he was going to fit, but I thought what it did was, if nothing else, it balanced out the lines. And I think my thought was that this was just made the team, it put the team in a better spot to win. And and look, Kuzmenko's done well, but I just, I was concerned with Fiala because, look, there was definitely it's known, or at least, he's a tough guy to play with. I think that's really what the bottom line is.
No,
and
I don't
see that. I don't see that really right now.
Well, that's a total positive for this team, because if he can produce in the postseason, that is really going to be huge for them, because they got to find at least 1 or 2 extra guys that are going to consistently produce points.
Yeah. No, right. I mean, because you always can count on Kempe come playoff time. Like, he's going to he's going to lead the team in goals. But now, if you've got 2 threats on that top line with Kuzmenko and Kempe, now Kopitar's got 2 guys to distribute it, and with the way Fiala has played, it's just good. Look, the play gets ramped up. So it's just, how does your game transcend to come game 83 and beyond? Because the line that I remember hearing from Pat Maroon, and maybe it's not him, or someone described Pat Maroon as a guy. There are some guys that get you into the playoffs, and then there are others that carry you through it.
Okay.
And Maroon was a guy that he's not going to be the guy that's going to get you into the playoffs, but you want that guy come playoff time, back in his day when he was winning 3 cups.
Yeah, he's built for the postseason.
He's built for it. And so is Kuzmenko, that space is going to shrink. Like, it's already small.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
So it's going to shrink. So we'll see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's a thing to look forward to, though, too. You talk about time and space. There's none of that in the postseason.
No.
So you got to create your own, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's hear from Nick Nixon, who had himself a very special night last night, and they had banners and everything all over the place. 44 years for the voice of the Kings, radio, TV, over 3,800 games. He's been in pro hockey for 50 years, and this is going to end it for him at the end of this season. A couple of pregame comments from Nick.
There are different feelings now than there were at the beginning of the season.
Yeah. I think with a night like this, and with the regular season winding down, it's okay, this is really happening for me. It's going to wrap up and wind down, and I will be retired when the season comes to an end. But, I've told a lot of you, I've expected this. I mean, it's been on my radar for a couple of years, retirement. So I'm good with everything. I just hope the team as a good playoff run in my last season. I don't want the last series to be against Edmonton because that was my first series, as Daryl remembers. In 1982, the Miracle on Manchester was my first playoff series with the Edmonton Oilers. So yeah, it's starting to hit home. Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah, fortunate. My two boys live right near us in Santa Clarita. Nick has the two grandkids. We see them a lot, and I'm looking forward to seeing them play their games in high school, junior high, soccer, all that kind of fun stuff, and be around for all the birthdays now instead of some of them. And my wife likes to travel, so we'll be doing a lot of that. So
there you go. So that's Nick Nixon going out on top. Hopefully a nice long run for him. Nick, that's the picture of him showing off his 2014 Stanley Cup ring to me. And I tell you, he's a great guy, a great broadcaster, and he's going to be missed because it's going to be a whole new era. Whoever takes over, it's not going to be the same.
No, it's not. It'll be interesting to see what they do because they haven't, I'm not aware of any.
Well, they got the kid who's been up, who I haven't met yet. I think his name is Josh. Yes.
But I will tell you, I'm a big fan.
Okay.
I'm a big fan. I think that Josh does a really good job. And I've listened, the times that I'm not, I'm in the car and not able, to be home watching the games.
Right.
I've caught Josh's broadcast and he's solid. He's got a great cadence for the game, great cadence. And, it's interesting, like I don't know if you know his story.
A little bit, but you know what? Let's get into that another time because we're running a little long here.
Okay,
and we'll talk about the transition. Let's go to the grade 8.
Okay.
What's his story? What are your expectations? We got a game tonight, right? He's got 4 away from Gretz, the all-time record. And what do you got in the odds department in that?
Well, so for me, look, I think that when you take a look at the way to approach it for me is that don't focus on the team that he is going to break the record if you believe he's going to break the record this year, and 4 goals shy. And so, finally he scored goals on back-to-back games.
Yeah.
And as we're doing this here, it's the first period of the end of the first period of the game.
That's right. They're already underway.
Carolina, 3-0 Carolina. Another game that Washington's given up 3 goals, but that's a story for another day. I don't target the team. like here's an example. Like, first off, it would be great that if he did it against Columbus, the team that he scored his first ever goal against. Like, I think that would just be a great story. They've got back-to-back games against Columbus, April 12th and 13th. So why I'm saying attack the goalies, if you want to bet them to break it against Columbus, you're getting about 3-1 on your money. So which means if you're not a bettor, you bet $100 and you can win like $300.
Okay.
But instead of doing that, I would, let's say, and I'm throwing out 100, whatever people are comfortable with.
Right.
I would take, let's say 100. I would split it up into 2 bets of 50 and bet them to score against either one of the Columbus goalies. Because if you bet Daniel Tarasoff, who, although is the backup goalie, you can get him at 9-1. So 100, a $50 bet would get you $450. Their starting goalie, Elvis Merzlikins, interestingly enough, Ted, is that he's been the backup both times that Columbus has faced Washington this year. But if you want to bet Elvis, think that, because they're playing back-to-back, likely going to play one of those games.
Right.
You get him at 11-1. So a $50 bet would get you $550.
Okay.
You're coming out further on betting on the goalies than you are if you bet the team. So pick your team, isolate their goalies. That's the way I would approach it with the New York with betting on Ovechkin. If you want to bet on Ovechkin to break the record.
Okay. Any other thoughts on trends or something you want to stress with the folks going into between now and next week's show?
Well, just something for anyone who's catching this live tonight. You've got Colorado is in Chicago tonight, and the Avalanche are about a minus $400 favorite. So got to bet 400 to win 100. Would never do that. But what I've found is that when you've got these big favorites, the underdog has scored a goal in 16 of the 21 games in the first period when you've had a big favorite like this. So that's a way to attack the game. I would bet the underdog. And then the other game for tonight, free money to me. Vancouver's playing Seattle. The total in this game is at 5.5. Ted, they've played 14 times in Seattle's brief franchise history.
Wow.
All 14 games have had 6 goals or more.
Really? Go for it, baby. What's the juice on that one?
It was at minus 120 the last.
That's all, huh? Interesting.
Yeah, you know, the one thing that's been really strange to me is that, and actually now I'm seeing that it's actually plus money on the over. I don't know. You know, the books are all feeling that with no Pedersen that Vancouver doesn't score, and I'm like, they didn't score with him. So, and they're scoring like crazy. Most of their, I think 9 of their 11 games have gone over. 9 of their last 11 have gone over. And for Seattle, there's something like 27-8 to their games going over the total after they lose.
Okay.
So
before
Seattle was my favorite play tonight.
Okay, great. So before we wrap this baby up, I think next week we'll talk a little bit more about, maybe Ovechkin will have it by then. Who knows? He could do it in the next 2 games if he gets hot here, right? Anything can happen. But there's a story now that Gretzky is going to be now following him.
Yeah.
Until the record is broken. Okay. Next show, I'll remind myself to mention the story on Gordie Howe when he was following Gretzky. He was not there for the game that Gretz broke. Most people forget that.
Yes.
And he was up in San Jose. That game was when Gretz tied Gordie, right, at 8:01. And this is Gordie saying, if you tell that story, Ted, I'm going to destroy you. It's one of my it's not the Hall of Fame. It was a funny picture. But anyway, I will tell the story about why he wasn't there when Wayne Gretzky broke his record in our next show. Anything you want to wrap up with here?
No, it's just been a lot of fun. Sorry for carrying on too long at times, but always enjoy the conversation with you.
Absolutely. So Home Ice Advantage, that's our debut show, everybody. What next Tuesday, right?
Next Tuesday, I think we got a date.
Yeah. Oh, do we have a time?
We'll let people know.
Everybody. You want to do it at 4? Or you want to do it at noon-ish? We'll let everybody know. We'll
let everybody
tweet
know.
it out.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's Jonathan Davis. I used to be Ted Sobel. Thanks for watching, everybody. We're talking Home Ice Advantage through the rest of the season and, of course, the Stanley Cup playoffs. Enjoy the hockey, everybody.